had a number of requests today for a telling of my 9/11 story, so I'm going to go ahead and share it with you all, you lovely people. And long story short, I was taking courses with Landmark Education at the time in the World Trade Center. I had taken my Landmark Forum there, my advanced course there, spring and summer of 2001. And had started my Forum in Action seminar. We had had initial meeting in the World Trade Center, and I was supposed to go for our next meeting Thursday the 13th. The morning of 9/11, my new girlfriend from just that week called me and said, "Turn on the TV." And I said, "What channel?" And she said, "It doesn't matter." And it was obvious soon why it didn't matter which TV channel I turned on. I saw the towers burning. And immediately my concern was for some people I love, people who had made a difference in my life. Basically, calling Landmark Education. They had their headquarters in the World Trade Center. That's where we'd been having our classes. And calling to find out if who was okay, what was going on, especially who was okay. And I didn't reach anybody until finally I called my seminar leader, Joyce Pike. Joyce is now a wisdom course leader. And, Joyce told me, Landmark starts their day late. So there was only one person on the floor. She got out. Thankfully, no one was killed in the 9/11 attacks. There was somebody injured, at least one that I know of, who had surgery. But then I asked Joyce, where does Landmark stand in all of this? And without a blip, she said, "Landmark stands where it has always stood, for a world that works for everyone. Then there'd be no need for something like this." And I still get goosebumps telling that story. But we had a seminar of like 200 people, and we were supposed to get together on the 13th. And Landmark was teaching us how to be unstoppable, to create things in life, to make a difference in the world. And some of us decided we were going to be unstoppable to get together on the 13th. So I think there were about 10 of us who decided we were going to go to Manhattan. Never mind that we didn't know when the trains were going to start. They started like within 12 hours, I guess, probably the day that we went in. My new girlfriend thought I was nuts for going into Manhattan. A lot of people were avoiding it like the plague. The Ground Zero was still giving off smoke. But I went in and we met at Union Square. That was as close as we could get to Ground Zero. And I think there were less than 10 of us, maybe only about 6 of us. And, we started talking about what everybody was talking about at first. Why did this happen? And who's responsible? And of course, the terrorists were responsible. Was anybody else responsible? Was our interference in the Middle East responsible? Was our covert operations, blah, blah, blah. Some of it conspiracy theory, some of it practical, all of it trying to see how this could be solved or fixed or prevented. And finally, one of our people who had gathered for the meeting stood up on I don't think it was park bench, I think it was park table, and said, Tracy said, "If politics could have solved this, if people strategizing could have prevented this, they would have. Let's stop talking about how and why and figuring it out. Let's start talking about how this impacts us personally. What is coming up?" Shifted the whole conversation. I'm grateful for Tracy. And we started, talking, getting angry, crying. We started sharing whatever we were sharing. That was, really how it touched our lives, how it moved our vision of life. And, it became, instead of it being a strategizing evening or a venting evening, it became a transformative evening, a healing evening. you know, however much you do in one evening, but still, it made a difference instead of just being our minds getting busy. And a few weeks later, maybe a month later, Landmark was understandably having trouble finding people to staff their events, people who were willing to go into Manhattan. And so I got a call. I'd never done production supervisor before, but they were like, you know, Doug, we're looking for someone to do production supervisor on our first Landmark Forum after 9/11. You know, we found a place to meet. Somebody has generously offered us to use their space to do a Landmark Forum, no charge, and you know, we're just getting it done. And would you production supervise this Landmark Forum? And I'm like, I've never done this before. And I'm like, yes, I'll do this. You know, and I don't think I got a manual ahead of time. I don't even remember. It was kind of a blur. What I did get was a course supervisor assistant who was amazing. You know, this was not stewardship delegation because I wasn't ready for that. It was Gopher delegation. She was holding my hand through the entire process. And, you know, but we delivered a Landmark Forum. We fulfilled a Landmark Forum. You know, the people who came there to get a difference made in their lives, you know, got not just any old Landmark Forum. They got a Landmark Forum, people standing to be cause in the matter, to be cause in the matter of life. And that's how I had it anyway. And, you know, to some extent it was a mess, but to some extent it was a great mess. And a few weeks later, I got a call, an acknowledgement call, a generous acknowledgement call, thanking me for bringing workability to unworkability. And finally, you know, I don't think it was for another month again after that, we finally did resume our seminar that was supposed to continue meeting in the World Trade Center, which is no longer there. And, you know, we had a different space. And we, our first evening, Joyce Pike, my seminar leader, again spoke. And, you know, we had sharing to do, you know, clearing, healing. But she began by saying that 9/11 was the epitome, was a clear example of what comes out of people being right, of people making everybody else wrong. Like that was the action of the terrorists, is they were being right. And they were making a lot of the rest of the world wrong. And, you know, I'm not, in saying that, making anybody wrong. What I'm saying is that there is a risk, a danger, an impact to just being right and not hearing anything outside of my being right. There's a world out there. And when I'm being right, I'm living in a small world. Not the world, just my own small world. And what it takes to make a difference for me comes right out of what Joyce Pike said, what Centers for Spiritual Living says. You know, this is not just Landmark anymore. Probably hasn't been for a long time. And that is to be a stand for a world that works for everyone, so that people don't have to do outrageous things in order to be heard, and that we are open enough to get other people's world even when it's not our world, even when they're being right. And that's my 9/11 share for today. I hope that everyone is getting value. I hope that you choose to get the value beyond just your own world, to get the value of not just being right about what happened or being right about what's possible, but to get the value of being a stand for a world that works for everyone. Love, energy to you and yours.